Yeah, well, I can't dance for sure, so I'm sorry. Um, I will be presenting about. Yeah, well, I can't dance for sure, so I'm sorry. Um, I will be presenting about neuroscience for incident response and crisis management and what we can learn. This presentation is for el desarrollo de sistemas de control de crisis en incidentes en tiempo real. So, sistemas de control de incidentes en tiempo real son una muestra de cómo podemos hacer la incident response o el crisis management. For example, um, cuando hay estabilidad en el negocio o estabilidad en las organizaciones, es un proceso administrativo. Pero cuando nosotros tenemos un incident, an incident very easy can become an accident, disaster, and a catastrophe. It depends how quick we interact and we coordinate the response to prevent that incident became a catastrophe. During business as usual, we have certainty, stability, and predictability. That's why we need to follow administration rules. When the incident happened, we have ambiguity, dynamism, and risk. And at that time, we have crisis, complexity, and uncertainty. At that time, we need to change our mindset from administration to leadership, de la administración al liderazgo. So, what we know from neuroscience is that when we have clarity of information and authority in a safe and sound support, that reduces our levels of uncertainty because we know what to do and we can overcome the situation if we have that with us. So this is the model that we implement, which is clarity of information and authority and safe and sound support. If we try to understand how our brain works when we have a crisis or when we have an event of a disaster or a discontinuity, it will give us an insight. We know that in the front lobe, we have the executive part, the cognitive part, is where we have our dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. On the middle brain, we have the limbic system. And the limbic system is in between the upper brain and the lower brain. The lower brain is our default, is the basement. So what it really happens is that when we are in a normal situation, when everything is okay, when we have certainty, our frontal lobe and our cognitive part works very well because there is no uncertainty. The dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, they are working very well. So we are very creative and everything can be fine. But what happened when we have a shock situation, when we have a situation that we don't know how to control? At that time, our middle brain start to release glucocorticoids, cortisol. Cortisol is completely opposite to dopamine and to oxytocin. And what it does, it will prevent our cognitive part to be efficient. That's why when some person is in a stress situation, it is blocked. It doesn't disseminate information and it can listen and cannot act in a good way because it's in a glucocorticoids defaulting to the lower brain. How do we can avoid situations like that? All right. When we have a situation, it depends on which side what you see. For example, we all can agree that here we see a circle. Do we see a circle here? Right? But I may challenge you to tell you that this is not a circle. I can tell you that this is a triangle. Well, if we go into a 3 dimension, it depends where you are, what you will see. If you are in a point B and you look to that situation, you will be a circle. But if I'm in a point A, I will be a triangle. That's why it is very difficult to cope with disasters and contingencies, because what a situation is very dangerous and risky for me, it may not be dangerous for you, right? And this is the problem of the disconnectivity. Now, how do we can ensure that we have a real-time data available to understand the problem? And this is what we should do. For any situation, we have three independent variables. The most important is people, or gente. The other is we need tools, critical systems to be able to communicate and to collaborate. And we also need premises or installations. Now, in a business as usual, when everything is normal, we may have a lot of people working, and we may have a lot of systems, and we have a lot of premises. But when an incident happened, for have clarity of information and authority, we need to reduce. Now, we know from a cognitive part that our brain cannot cope with more than 7 processes at the same time. So it means that we need to select only few people, only few premises, and only few systems, only those ones that are critical for us. So what we need to know is to be able to know what is the people, if they are safe and sound, and if they are okay. Now, the next thing is what are the critical systems that I need to be able to coordinate my operation, my recovery, or my response. And then, where are the physical locations where we need to work? This we call the gravity, the center of gravity. Now, what is important here is like, we need to confirm what we know. That is to change the silo mentality and to break the cognitive bias. So if we know and we confirm what we know, then we can't, by induction, confirm what we don't know. And then, lo que no sé, que sé, y lo que no sabemos, unknowns, unknowns. This is the universe of information, and this is the matrix that we need to work to confirm, to enact. Most of the problems that happened is that in many situations of a disaster of contingencies, people tend to work in a silo mentality. And when we work in silo mentality, we have the disconnectivity problem for the brain. So what you see is different to what I see. And your actions are completely different to my actions. So if those actions are not coordinated, then the outcome will be uncoordinated, which will be a problem. And stress will give us more stress, and a mistake will take us to another mistake. So what we need to do is catalyze the information, enable people to manage the assumptions and manage the time, and facilitate the information flow in real time, and negotiate and have enforcement of the unity of effort. So like everyone working together. This is an example of working in silo mentality, but this is how we can work together by sharing information with the due diligence, with role responsibilities, and with segregation of duties. We need to reduce that conflict. Also, it is very important that we have a precisely methodology or framework to establish role of responsibilities for segregation of duties and for auditability. For example, in this green space, that is my function. This is what I do, and you don't. And this part is what you do, but I don't. But this is what we do together, and this is how we do it. I want to play the... there is audio. in that. Okay. So is any question here? It's okay. Well, the what the audio is, it is there is only to just to recall in the part of the cognitive part and the neuroscience behavior for the response. But if is any question here that you guys may want to discuss, no? Okay. Well, I think we finished with that presentation. Well, thank you very much.